buenas tardes, bienvenidos a la librería Booksellers. Estamos muy contentos de tener nuevamente a John y a todos vosotros en la tienda y que disfrutéis mucho del evento. Welcome, we are very happy to have John and you in our bookshop. Again, enjoy the launch of the Arias of Consolation.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.
I'm not getting the tune right this time.
Don't worry, don't worry. We'll come to you. It's the lament for
I know.
Limerick.
Won't come.
We played it last night.
That's
That's the reason. Sort of imagine Sarsfield and his soldiers leaving the quay bound for France after the last siege of 1690, and that tune was composed for that event. Now we have Don.
Thanks, John, and thanks again for everyone for coming out today for the, I suppose it's the second Madrid launch of Arias after the Athena last night. The book is published by Revival Press, the poetry imprint of the Limerick Writers' Centre. When we initially published Arias in September last year in Limerick, it was our 118th title we had published since we began our community publishing programme over 10 years ago. And only last week we published our 127th title. So it's something worth noting that when the demise of the book and printed paper was about 10 years ago, saying that it would disappear, it would all go electronic, it hasn't happened. So the technology of the book may be old, but still in a lot of cases is cutting edge. This is the 5th collection we have published of John Liddy's poems. John Liddy's poetry has always been an important part of Revival Press and the Limerick Writers' Centre. He was the first poet we published back in 2009 when we published the Well, New and Selected Poems. Poets are often encouraged to make it new when writing, but for me, and I feel more importantly, Liddy makes it real. His work is honest and authentic. He writes from the heart, but he crafts from the head. And he has indeed chopped the wood and carried the water for a long time now in the service of poetry. It was and is our priority to publish writers from Limerick, and I'm glad who have been responsible for not just publishing seasoned writers like John, but also publishing many new voices from Limerick over the years. This book by John, Arias of Consolation, is, I believe, a very important addition to the canon of Limerick literature. Divided into 8 sections, it brings us on a journey and stamps our passport at various crossing points along the way. In Arias, John writes about Limerick, but not just as a physical place. As alluded to last night in the Athena, Limerick is the navel from which John's work is centred, and through his use of the vernacular language, he recreates for us and gives us an oral experience, creating new meaning. Combined with the drawings of Limerick artist John Shinners, he touches on and weaves questions of identity, belonging and home, transforming them and us in the process. I'm very proud to have been able to publish this book. I believe it will stand the test of time and be a rich source of enjoyment, reference about social history of Limerick and its people for many years to come, as well as being great poetry. A quotation that has become our motto at the Limerick Writers' Centre is by Pablo Neruda, the Nobel Prize-winning poet, who said a number of years ago that poetry is like bread. It should be shared by all, by the vast, incredible, extraordinary family of humanity. And that is what I like to think we're doing here this afternoon, sharing with family and friends the poetry of John Liddy. So thank you once again for all coming out today.
Otro lamento por los libros que perdió un poeta al trasladarse de la isla de Valencia, no de Valencia donde vivo yo, de Valencia en Irlanda, al otro lado del puerto de Valencia, y escribió este lamento por la pérdida de los libros.
And so we get to the book. I'd like to begin with the prelude, which I call a prelude. It's short, and finish with a kind of a postscript to the poem. It's one long poem, and as Dom said, with the drawings by John Shinners, who's an old friend of mine and a great artist. The reason I like to read those two are they're the foundation stones of the poem. The poem swings and flows in between those two stones, great rocks. I like to visualize them as. And apart from that, just say briefly, some of this poem is inaccessible in terms of its language, its words, the mixture of Hiberno-English, Gaelic, all sorts of local argot and so on in the poem. But with patience, dear reader, I think you'll crack it, you know. So don't give up on it, which is what I'd like the reader to get out of this book, is watch the flow as it, like a river, the River Shannon moving through it, the voice of the river, my own voice, and the voices of lots of people in the poem. So the prelude, and this really explains how I actually got the opening. I was able to write this poem. The cover, prized open by a council worker, sound of iron on stone along Denmark Street, and the putrid smell of centuries in the air, gave me the opening to spin my tale with sodden threads of grey-green cloaks, caught in a sudden wind like a suspended gull, a school of seals in Shannon's clutches during the heat of the contest between spear and sword on the bare place cropped by horses. Those threads now used to weave while able, to sing of times gone, present and to come, touch the pulse of place and people. And postscript. What is here before you will come to mimic itself. The black ink of the word will dim and fade like Daly's flag from Limerick, a passing phase, a shibboleth recalled by one who in a future unknown may connect with memory through whiff of Shannon, coursing through its lines, out into the span, as far as the mouth of the estuary, cloaked with seals, spear and sword, one clan, like gull and swan drifting in a morning peace, where two waters imperceptibly merge forever to lap the shore of people and place. Part 4. Like a magpie, I raided the county for ore, learned about a duel described as pistols for two, coffee for one in Fedamore. Folk memory recalling a Cromwellian despised for the confiscation of lands, his iron leg the softest part of him, meanings of scart, sluggery and spittle from Skilogs who once used the bully for milking in fields without legal title. The townland of Streelan, a slippery place with its American ground and university campus where my hoards lie in archives not far from the meadows of firewood and sloe bushes, conifer, coolashel, cush, effin, nicker, and a bicycle borrowed by a man who thrashed the Ballysimon road to see his store dancing in the fog of Balloch Hall, honour gone down restored. Kill this and kill that, Ailey and Ely, Phelim, Lidon, crosses of Clahon, ford of the stepping stones in dreamy youth, enough to fuse Frank McCourt to search for a Jewish princess in Kilmurray graveyard, for me to consort on Kay's height with Patrick and Nesson, Silurian rock under the stone circle, where the winter solstice draws us in, to ride with the ghost of Garrod Irla on a silver steed across Loch Gur every 7 years, his sculpted head preserved in a Grange farmhouse, removed from a Desmond castle during times of attrition and chaos. The poet Ted Hughes testing his will for pike caught in a poem, or the role of young love snowballing down the hill. Kilfinnan and O'Sullivan Bear camped on his march through hell, crossroad dancing, the moat in Lower Nagyart, overlooking ancient field and enclosure, the Ballyhowra streaked with bog cotton, conifer and Fionn seat facing Castle Oliver on lands acquired by a crown officer, from which issued Elizabeth Gilbert or Lola Montez or Spanish dancer. Bleach green of the blood dung, drunk for human consumption, another Edie for Killede, Scartine foxhounds in a song about the black and tans, never to come out again, except when recalling posterity's deeds, like the cruelty of the White Knight in the Brawn Shearshire, the hereditary drop continuously dripping in the Abbey, a mark of divine displeasure in Kilmallock, another curiosity on a smithy's wall, the statue of Vulcan by one Michael Scanlon near the silver mines in Stoneville. Hill of truth for gauging the weather, stone upon the line boy, fairies and pishogues swirling in the air, God between us and all harm, dawn galloping in the clouds tonight, eggs buried in hay and in fields of corn, the glen of Broth flowing from the giant's house beneath the green grass summit, Celtic god of Knockfearna's other worlds, keep us from misfortune and safeguard our crops, bless our predictions and hear our prayers in the sanctuary of the Lord, that I may breathe in its beauty and mourn the bones of the Rapparee, Eamon and Connick beneath the fertile plains of Doon. 6 counties at my feet on a clear day, views to Kilfer, ridge of Hazelwood, ford of Oak Tree, the Banshee Ely near the haggard of Wild Garlic, Oisin and his glen, great tillage plot and place for grain in the town of a fairy mansion, Fort William or Bale-Dorriga, Odellville, the Grove, the Turret in the vicinity of Ballingarry, where mother's people saw fortune dwindle, run like blue dye down the Woad Hill, memory of deeds during the famine, now in short supply. Hill of Sound, Hill of Stranger, a thought for the poet Clarence Mangan, shaded by Shanna Golden's old shoulder, the White Lady of the Rock hovering over Ashford at night, and a student in Ita's monastery, Wilby Brendan the Navigator, Brewery and Bruff, seats of the noble Irish, Castle of O'Connigs, Rock of O'Connells, bastions against the Viking on the rampage, the burn too far for the eye to sight, but not Charlotte Bronte or Cousin James in Fitzpatrick's Dixie Band, Austin's delight quenched in Limerick, the rapturous welcome for Liszt, recovery for Sassoon on river walks with garrisoned graves, Dolore for Dickens's Notebook, Capanti where I camped as a boy, and I presumed the one falling star fell only for me. By Juling Field and John's Land I gleaned the town of many synonyms, Gelding's Leap, promontory of 2 Sally trees, Grey Green Place, Almeric, Helmeric, Lameric, Lumnanig, Liminock, Leagloss, or the phonetic Leagon, Loomlock, walled town of gates, a dozen English, 2 Thomans, 1 with a drawbridge, Island and Petersell, Abbey, Jail, Fish, Bale North, Cray, Bow, Castle, Newgate, the 5 Irish, Bale South, St. John's, East and Westwater, Mongret, gone forever like the lanes I number, Ball and Black, Blue, Black Bull Alley Abbey, Blood Mill, Bonicle, Bushy Crow, Dixon, Forker, Garvey, Glover, Glue, Goat, Gridiron, Lee, Lydia or Liddy, Love, Piggott, Pump, Punches, Tanyard and the White Wine, gone like the Palatines with their cider orchards and potato drills, flocks of geese brought to market by fair and dark stranger, the wandering tribes of Erin, Blonde, Clarin, Cropman, Fine, Janice, Goldberg, Gould, Graff, Greenfield, Jaff, Jerome, Leon, Mozzle, Shockett, Sive, a roll call no longer recalled, lost in the overgrowth of God's acre, along with Bannatyne and Croker, Gabbett, Glentworth, Gloucester and Lever, Summerfield, Setright, Sittrick, Sitterick, Weller, names that once walked the halls of power. Almost dark in Lanarone, but I can still delineate the Dutch gables built by settlers with their own brick-making skill. As a cold wind blows through the bow, the smell of urine and threats, snatches of bravado from a voice in the know. Come out fighting now, me Corconian, with a knick-knack paddywhack, give a dog a bone. This old man came rolling home past Nelly's room with an odd backlash, one for the road, two for the ditch, from a bio with a rag on every bush. Home by Scabby Lane, where raucous debate is about young Patrick O'Brien, who drew the short straw on the Francis Sprate. Home by way of stables and soggy scraw, with the shaper, the skunt and the scoulder, foostering over Troneen in the straw home, to mull over the buried baby in a plot near Millbrook, with 4 or 5 lying there from the one large family. Home to the laminated top, with a handful of city and county fair for weaving its way into a cota olla of the finest wool. I can never reach the end of any of these sections. It just takes so much out of me. Thank you for listening and thank you for coming here today. Flavia. Poquito para relajarnos un poco. Después de este, vamos a ver. That's why I chose it. It's good practice. I knew it was long, but as I was going into it, oh God, I made a mistake. and then I've been told to mention that the books are ready for signing. Puedo firmar ahí en la mesa ahí, ¿no?
Sí,
Vale.
perfecto, John.
Después. Last House in Connacht. No, sorry. It's got two titles. As we all know, the first can be last and the last can be first. It depends on what direction you're coming from. No? So we'll go. We're going to try this out and then people can wander around. And maybe Miguel,
down there.
you go down there. And maybe as we're finishing, Miguel might play just as people wandering around. You don't have to stand and listen to him. He understands. He'll just play. Va a tocar otro luego y ya, ¿no? The Last House in Connacht. To the memory of Michael Russell, who played the tune of the title for myself and Canute Skinner one evening in O'Connor's pub, Doolin, County Clare, Ireland. Any old country road will do to hear its version of the future. In the closing time, voices accustomed to the dark or delirious shadows with their coded messages for change, so close they may as well be far out at sea, along with the stubborn stone in the middle of a field, or the thorny ditch lie a stray cat scratch, guarding its little patch of the past. Any old country road will tell you how it was, is, and wants to be, free of the blighted verges of its hungry dead, the potted hellholes of neglect, road alive in the full flight of summer dance, of passionate winter dawns, road that leads to the last latch where you may hang your heavy coat up on the floor and listen to sweet tunes for young ears played by old fingers. Surely you have imagined such a house where even the egg timer had stopped, plates of brown bread, heaven on earth, known such people whose very kindness had the natural air of being uniquely special, ancestral survivors of Cromwell's merciless sword, their caved-in cottages, monumental wounds of famine, burnt offerings of drunken despair to loves who fled to America. Surely you have stumbled across this landscape in any old knockdown town, reclaimed anew, recognized the pain on its broken walls, along the outline of slums and cornerstones, in the smell of pulverized dollars sent home with letters of polite lies, too sad for spending on a glow of hope in the empty grate. Such towns yearn for balance between the sound of milk churn and discotheque, market mule and rush hour traffic, a sudden flock of sheep in the clean haze of exhaust fumes, the hum of the fuchsia bush, cravings for the centre of the heart's search before the spine of the forgotten country road blisters and cracks in your palm. Bueno, Miguel, tú vas a tocar una mientras nosotros estamos...
Bebe.